Welcome to the second episode of cinematography podcast, DP's World. My guest today is a young cinematographer from Poland, Bartosz Nalazek. Check it out. Welcome to the second episode of DP's World. Today my guest is Bartosz Nalazek, a young and very promising cinematographer from Poland. His work includes
The kind words.
Yes, his work includes movies such as Run, Sweetheart, Run, Tell It to the Beast, The Artist, which is a Polish TV series, and many other ones. He also works as a light designer for theater and opera. His work includes over 30 plays. Bartosz also works closely with Janusz Kaminski on movies by Steven Spielberg, movies such as Lincoln, Warhorse, The Post, Bridges of Spies, and a few other ones. Bartosz, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your amazing knowledge and experience.
Thank you for
Uh,
having me.
of course, great pleasure. Bartosz, so tell us, what is your deal? you're so Tell us about your journey. Your work is so great and you're so young. How did you get to the point where you are? Tell us about your journey.
I think I'm just stubborn,
Mhm.
I think there was a point in my life where I just decided, and I think I'm really lucky to be able to say that. That's why I think it's just being stubborn more than being, really thoughtful about the process. But I had this moment in my life where I had I was lucky that my mom was working in an advertising agency, and part of my childhood was being suspending, being in that advertising agency, and also just being on sets, and that's why I was just the presence of being on a set, and then first it was looking at the director, and then seeing the role of the cinematographer. There's that moment where I'm just like, that's what I want to do. I mean, I love that because I've been doing pictures. I've been looking for ways for how to for self-expression, and looking for tools, and most of my life as a kid I was experimenting, and then I just made that decision. I'm going to be a cinematographer, and probably that's when I was 14, or something like that, and I just it fixated myself that that's what I want to do. And I think many it throughout all these years, you always think, is it hard work, is it talent, what is it that keeps you in the business? And I just think that whatever you choose to do, and you're persistent in doing, is the key element to that. Of course, you said, you gave me all this credit. I wish I could kind of sink into thinking, okay, this is my deal, I have achieved this much. But to be honest, I have constantly this thinking in my head that it's still not there yet. I still have to do more. I still have to go further. I'm still, I guess I'm a slow cooker. Like I'm still in the oven. It's like this permanent state of feeling that you're still in the baking in the oven. And you just keep going. And I think that's the to be very brief, that's the deal. you know
so, did you go to film school?
I went to film school. I went to the Polish National Film School in Łódź,
Mhm.
which is the acclaimed Polish film school that all the famous Polish DPs went to. And I just, there was a moment where I said, I'll have to get in, and I didn't really apply for anything else. I just put all my attention, all my effort to into photography that I needed to use as part of my exam. And I just took a train to Łódź, and I said I have to do this, and somehow I did it. Thanks God, because it's free in Poland for Polish
Yeah,
people.
yes. That's a great,
And it's
big
really,
plus.
and it's really funny, because then, most of the Polish, most of the Polish VPs that are working in the world went, the ones that are established and famous at the moment, went to that film school, except one, which is Janusz Kamiński,
Right.
which I happened to later be his protege and friend, and our careers, our paths crossed, and it's kind of
Right.
funny that
Mm-hmm.
he's the only one that didn't go to the
Right.
film school.
He went to Chicago school.
First
School in
went to
Chicago.
Columbia and Chicago, and then
Mhm.
he went to AFI. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So, did you study still photography first?
I did, but it was a, how do you say it? Is it like post high? It's a post high school. I went to this school while I was being in high school, although
Mm.
it was a school that was already, for people that were past. I somehow broke in 2 years before, so I could line up everything, so I could, like, line up the photography school, and then have a
Mm.
clearing to go to the National Film School. So yeah, but that was getting into photography was also just the part of preparing for being a cinematographer.
Right. So, here's like another question. Would you do anything different if you were to start from scratch in present times? Because cinematography is such a hands-on profession, right? And nowadays there's so much content online, and it's so much easier, I think. 'Cause I never lived, in those times there was more difficult, and there was no internet, but it seems like it's so much easier to learn, right? So, uh, do you think you would go to school? Is it worth it to go to school?
I think, there's two things. If there's something I would do different in my life, I would probably go to film school later, because I went there directly. I went to film school when I was 19. Uh, when you later understand what it takes to be a good cinematographer, and what you need foremost as a filmmaker, um, to be successful is also, where are you coming from, and what's your baggage, what's your understanding about the world, and what comes after that is how you want to express that through the medium of cinematography. And when you enter film school so young, I think it's, you just, you're basically, you're not shaped as an artist in a way, so you're susceptible to the academics, and what I see after that time is I really was getting getting in the academics, and there was a point where I understood that's not you know that that's just in a way limiting. It's knowledge, but it's great knowledge when you already have the back, when you kind of like know what you want to achieve, or like, not, it's not like you know what you want to achieve, but it's more like you sorry, turn this off. um you know it's uh, it's just like when your brain is just, so when you, as a person, and your personality is still undeveloped, you basically look at the profession from the technical aspect of it.
I
You're
see.
thinking how to do things, or like how to put lighting, and you want to learn the skill. But the skill is something that everybody can learn in a way. Do you
Mhm.
need a film school? You don't really need a film school to learn that. There's a second aspect of a film school that I want to say is important in this matter. But the first one is like, the film school is a opportunity where you have certain projects that you can do, and you can make mistakes. Film school is this place where you can experiment, and you can kind of yeah, basically it's this room for experimentation and kind of developing yourself, like of what you find interesting and in cinema, and how you want to use this this medium to express yourself, and you know, and it's a perfect place to do that when you already go directly into the kind of commercial world where you're like, you know, you get it the DSLR and you try to do commercial projects. You don't really have, you know, you can try to sneak in techniques into projects, but mostly you're serving someone. You know, when you go out with your camera and you start doing music videos, you know, you're serving someone. You know, in film school you have the opportunity to foremost serve yourself as a filmmaker, as an artist, to develop yourself, to see what's interesting, you know. And that's really important about it. And the second thing that's really important about a film school is you meet people, you know, around you that also are there to share the same experience. And then you know, just by the network of people that you build in film school, that later becomes, you know, your network of the collaborators as a director. I mean, most of the great collaborations between DPs and directors come out of film school, because they had the shared experience of developing ideas together. You know, that's the ultimate purpose of a film school, is to do that, to experiment, to learn about yourself as a filmmaker, who you want to be, where do you want to go with this. It's a room that you can be inspired and be selective about the work that has a meaning to you, and again, and meet people that share the same ideas or the same feelings about what they want to do, and you know, and that's the great benefit of a film school. If you can achieve that without the film school, it's also fine. It's just way harder to do that, you know. And but then again, like the way that we learn about our profession, about our trade, is, you know, is accessible. I'm just waiting for the master class to have like the first DP there, you know, like to teach you how to be cinematographer in a 2-hour course, you know, or something like that, you know, because you have these directors now, and I'm like, I'm just waiting for who's going to be the first one. Roger Deakins, you know, who's going to teach you creative lighting. It's really interesting about that, you know. I had this friend that asked me to do a little intro about lighting for some students that are completely green about it, you know, and they're like, hey, can we could just make a Zoom, you know, or something. And I'm like, I had this idea that, well, how about, you know, I walk them through a truck and we take out lights, but it's really hard, you know, like I can't do it in a different way and just sit in front of a computer and say, okay, there's daylight and there's tungsten, and then and there's LED light, kind of like the, you know, fluorescent, blah, you know, and it's just, you know, like you still need the hands-on. You still need to experiment with it, and only through that you're going to really learn how to be creative about it, you know. When I was before I even went to film school, and I was just really passionate, I was going to this film festival, Camerimash, you know, and there was you know, a workshop with Renia da Ferrassin, who was the cinematographer of Elizabeth. And I went up to him and I had this question that was the most important question that I really was trying to figure out. And the question was, how do I know whether it's a 2K or a 5K that you put outside of the window? And I really didn't know. Like, what's the, you know, I didn't know about, you know, the science that is behind it. But also as a cinematographer, you don't really think about the science. But anyway, the answer that he gave me was, you just feel it. And that was the most disappointing answer I ever had, until I reached the moment where I'm like, okay, yes, I see the point. You just feel it, you know, and it's, there's no algorithm of how where to place the camera, you know, how to be a filmmaker that is personal about his work, you know, or like makes people feel, you know, there's certain approaches to finding a methodology of achieving certain effects, but most of it is you have to be driven by, by your own feelings and where you're coming from and what you're standing for, and that's what I'm saying. For a 19-year-old boy that, that just got out of high school, it's a lot to really understand and to come from a grounding of understanding of this matter, and that's why I think, to be really successful, it's important to, I think, to come from somewhere, because then I had to I had a period where I had to do the homework. I had to merge to decide, and to me, it was going into theater, and it was going into like just breaking the academics in my head. And I at the time, which was 10 years ago, I was really fascinated with what's happening in theater, because you had these really interesting, avant-garde directors that were breaking all the rules and trying to experiment with form, with time, with structure. And they were even taking on like classic texts, and reorganizing the space and time and form. And that's something I thought that should be happening in film, but it wasn't. Because in the film world back then, it was more like people were trying to prove something. They were trying to prove with short films that they can do a feature film so they can get it. Or they were trying to prove that they can build a character. But there was nothing like, there's nothing experimental about it. There was nobody that was experimenting like, okay, what is this medium? Like, what can we do with this? Like, how can we really affect the audience and break the, and break the expectations, or break the narrative, what's the word? Like, what we're used to, experience from a narrative, from like any type of storytelling, whether it's theater or something. And that's but that was happening in theater. So I was just like, okay, I'm gonna go there. I mean, I think I'm always was fascinated with lighting, and I think, I can take part in this world with creating lighting. And I also was tempted in like, okay, there's this black box, and for me it was like one of the most challenging concepts that I heard was that light doesn't have to have motivation. And it was really early in the film school when I heard that, and I'm like, what does that mean? I mean, like, light doesn't need any motivation. You have a person walking in a dark forest, and you just need to see the face, and you don't, audience is never going to think, where's that light coming from? So it was already like, okay, so the face is more important than, the space, or like the context where it is, or something, or like, if you're in the night, you can put a light behind me and then light me with a completely different source that is a film light, and people are never going to think, oh, is there a lamp over there? Where is this light coming from? And that was just a little tiny, beginning for me to think like, okay, so what are the limits of breaking, of like, or either following that concept of light doesn't need motivation. And then to me, okay, you have a black box in theater. There is no motivation for light in theater.
Right.
You are the motivation. Same thing with color, something. And what most DPs do when they go into theater to light theater, they're like, okay, there's a window. We do the same thing. We try to create realistic effects, and I was just like, well, why? But like, why? Like, like, maybe this is actually a really interesting place to just explore. Okay, let's think about color in a way that it's, like, you can do front lighting and it's all flat with one color, and it's not meant, it's built for the eye, it's built for the feeling, it's built for the human spectator, and not for the camera. So you can really challenge the dynamic range of the lighting also.
Right.
You can light for the eye, which is what I was doing. I was sometimes the plays I was lighting, like, they were looking really extreme through the stills that were the documentation of them. And I'm like, well, you know what? And I'm like, I don't care. I'm not lighting for the, I'm not lighting for the camera. I'm lighting for the experience, And that was just like a place where I was just like destroying all the academics, because, in the film world then, theater was just this place that wasn't meant for serious cinematographers in that way, or like
Right.
so that's where I was exploring the freedom of the medium, and it became a really important part in what I was looking for later in my life.
I see. Yeah. So yeah, many DPs like to show the source of the light, right? So let's say, I don't know, you have a, like you mentioned the forest, right? And the most important thing is the face, and but is it moonlight, or where's the light coming from, right? And do you need to show it, or you don't need to show it? Some people just really like to show it because it's important to them to show it, right? When like you said, in the theater, it's just you do whatever you want, you know.
Yeah, but then what's really interesting is like those rules also apply to cinema in a certain way,
Mm-hmm.
and clearly that is way more the trend. What I've been kind of exploring earlier in theater, it's becoming now a little bit more of a trend in the cinemas, like the use of color, you know, more like using color as building emotions and feelings over over like this is the reality, or like this is this is a certain world, and DPs that are using especially the LED technology now just to to more express themselves or just the feelings of the characters, or use the freedom to do that, have that possibility now, and that's like, I think that's kind of like the thinking, even like even what you do, in the TV series, Euphoria, or that's just this from top of my head, you there's way more, there's way more theatrical lighting there in situations, and exploring like just this is what kind of, because this is what people are in the end leaning towards, and that's it's the tone, and it's the emotions, and and yeah, and that's kind of like, I feel, goes through the black mirror of your screen to the audience, than like just creating a sense of reality that that's you know what I mean.
Yeah. Do you think it depends on a project to be so um, to have that chance of being so creative and do kind of whatever you want? So
Oh, totally. I mean,
yeah.
but to me, I would have to say, if you go for like a naturalistic look,
Mm.
or what you do with with movies like Moonlight, or Florida Project, or movies like that are way more into the like naturalistic world than creationistic, right? That's how you say it.
Why not?
Yeah, I mean, that at least that makes sense in my head.
Sure.
But you still can apply the same rule, that it's still a creation, in a way, even if you're
Right.
like, okay, you're applying a world that seems more raw, organic, but you still enter it with the same mindset, that
Mhm.
it's just a different style, but it's still it's still a body that is meant to convey a certain story and certain emotions, and you use this as a like I'm just thinking about the big pink hotel in Florida Project, or like also how Barry Jenkins used color, and like, I'm just using that because those are naturalistic projects. They're not like crazy Nicholas Refn kind of like use of color that you can
Mhm.
just go and be really really free with it,
Right.
but it's like, I just wanted to say, it's like still the same mindset can work in both worlds, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Another question. In your opinion, does luck and connections play a big part of being established cinematographer?
Huge. It's huge. There's so many people have the talent and the sensitivity, and are like, to me, have like the same standards to do it, but which ones breakthrough
Mm-hmm.
is a sense of like, you know, the right lineup, you know, and the right people that you meet, and the right movies that you do. Or what I've heard recently is like, you know, what makes your career is not the movies you make, but the ones that you resign, or like you don't do, you know. Which is, again, it's like all like decision situations what you do. And we all cherish the DPs that had a career where they were and still have like the ability to be decisive about it, you know, and be
Right.
decisive about the projects that they choose. But most of us are not in that position. Most of us are just, we just want to work. You know, we just want to do it. We don't want to. We just want to do it. We don't want an additional job that, you know, so you can choose the other project. And it's just very difficult. But the way that I see it is just, you know, we have, there's just a limited group of people that through a lot of miracles, a lot of little miracles that happen, can get out, you know. And I'm very aware of the little miracles that happen in my life to put me where I am. And I'm aware of the amount of little miracles that still have to happen for me to not stop in this place where I am right now, you know. And that allows me to also to sometimes just to, as much as being proactive about your career and trying to maximize the opportunities that you have and the connections. But at the same time, it allows me to just sit back and watch my life just kind of from a back seat and say, oh, it's interesting. Where is this going to take me? You know, what's going to happen? You know, if am I going to just stay here and this is the last movie that I done, or, you know? But then again, that's where I think being stubborn comes in. You know, you just have to keep on doing it. You know, you just have to you just have to keep on trying. And I believe that eventually you're going to get there, get wherever but at the same time, where do you want to get?
Right.
Is Are awards you know, a goal? Is it being an ASC member? Is that your goal? You know, what are your goals in that matter? You know, like, do you, is there a specific bar that, because what if you achieve that, and what then, you know? But to me, it's like, I don't, you know, for me, what's the most important is be in a position where I can use my profession to express myself and be part of projects that have a meaning also to me personally. And as much as I'm going to find in any job that I get a little bit of that, I'm going to be happy. You know, is it genre? You know, is it the script? Is it the characters? Whatever. But if there's a little bit of something that I can relate to, and I can find it important to me, I'm lucky. You know, I'll be happy to do that. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah.
Okay, let's go to another question. So, do you have a mentor?
Do I have a mentor? I have the best mentor out there
Right.
for the last 10 years,
Well, it's kind of a silly question, but
which is Janusz Kaminski, obviously, and
right.
I'm
Yeah.
extremely lucky to be able to maintain that relationship. And you know, and at the moment he's a very close person and a friend and a mentor, and I'm still a big fan of his work. And you know, and before I even met him, I was still like, to me, he was representing what this kind of baldness and yeah, baldness in the way of just using the form, the you know, the using the medium to express himself and to push, you know. But the mentors I had, you know, I kind of, from the very early beginning, you know, but he's one thing, but like the early mentors, you know, like all my life, I had the mindset that I needed mentors, you know, I needed role models. What when I went to photography school. It was the photographer that opened the school. Who was this photographer? Is the photographer Marian Schmidt. So I was really believing that if I'm going to study his approach and his mindset, I'm going to achieve a certain understanding, and then I can relate to that and either push it away or make it my own. And later on, I had other mentors, but unfortunately, other mentors, it was different. It had different dynamics, but it was the DP that I saw first on set. Later was the one that hired me as an operator on this Polish TV series, and that was one. Then in film school also I had dynamics where I was, from being like the favorite student, I was turning into the most horrifying student that I was the worst example. And I was going through all these dynamics, which was really interesting
Right.
to me, because it was also a process of like you when you have a mentor, like one you learn his way, but then also you reflect on, is this my way, and you relate to that with your own work. But then
Right.
I met Janos, and that had a huge impact on my life.
Yeah, I don't think I need to ask you how important it is to have a mentor. I think you answered that.
To add it, because
Sure.
there's two ways. There's kind of, I probably there's more, but you have the mentorship way is the oldest way, and our profession is rooted in the mentorship approach to learning the profession. Because the cameraman was the person that knew how to use the camera. It wasn't an artist even. It was just the guy that knew how to run it. And then his assistant was the natural next one that was getting, because he also learned how to use the camera, and he was the next cinematographer. And because he, like you were just, it was how do you say it? It was like a, like by, it was by not by heritage, by you were like just what's the word? But you know what I mean. Like you were just getting it from him, and then he was passing it to his
Right.
assistant, and
Yeah.
then his assistant.
Mm-hmm.
And for many years it's still the case, and especially in America, you still you still have the system where you go from loader to second AC to first AC to operator, and then you can be a DP. And but also there's a different way where you just go right in there, and you're just like from the very beginning, and you just shoot yourself, and shoot yourself, but you shoot by yourself, your own projects. And what I think, I think there's, we have great examples of both ways. I'm just slightly leaning closer to the one where you just follow your desire to use the medium as your way of expressing yourself from the very beginning. And you can, of course, you can have a camera department job to still build the knowledge and build the network and build the contact, but you can't believe that doing 5 years of loading it and 5 years of second ACing and 5 years of first ACing and then 5 years of operating, and that's gonna really teach you how to be a cinematographer. Which it still will, but it's still very focused on the technical aspect, and our job is way more is way beyond just the technical aspect of it. We are filmmakers, we are auteurs, we are collaborators, and we are responsible for the the look of the movie, but also the feel of conveying the story, of reflecting the emotions, and and it's so much bigger than that, than
Right.
just knowing how to light and how to lens.
Yeah. Huge responsibility, of course. Yeah. So you already mentioned Janusz Kamiński, but let's talk about more about the collaboration with him. How did you get to work with him?
It was a mutual friend that called me, which is a friend that I went to high school with, a producer, and he basically called me one day. It's just that lucky call you get, you know, like, hey,
Right.
you know, Janusz Kaminski is looking for, you know, he's shooting in London, so he can hire somebody from Poland, because it's not a union job, and he's looking for a protege, and would you be interested, you know? And that was that. And I didn't believe that, you know, that was real until you know, my foot was set on the set of a Steven Spielberg movie, which was Warhorse. And you know, and also Janusz is, you know, he doesn't write like his emails, and my whole my first communication with him was very like just one sentence emails. I was just like, is this really happening? Is this? And I didn't really tell anyone until it happened, you know. And but then, you know, I was in the position where like everybody was telling me like, you're here to learn, you're here to learn. I wasn't in the camera department. I was more under Janusz directly. I was first foremost, I was supposed to project dailies and handle the whole uh, projection of dailies, since it was 35 millimeter, and I had like this little projector that I had to, you know, run and every day collect the film cans and organize them and project them in an order and do that stuff. But then you know, and I did that, but then I wanted myself to be even more helpful, and I was just looking, well, maybe there's a role that I can do and really make the system more efficient of getting good dailies than just, you know, doing printer lights or something like that.
Right.
So I started taking stills on set, and we were grading them with Janusz on the day, and you know, and that kind of grew into like this whole kind of, you know, 35 millimeter DIT kind of position, where I was just I made developed this whole system where we were, you know, I was taking a bunch of stills on set and grading, but it's the same thing, you know, and we had you know, I calibrated monitors and all that. It was just like, you know, I wasn't the only one doing that, but like I had to figure out by myself how to make it efficient, you know. That was my job for, you know, it was like a dream job because I get to watch all the dailies, I get to be on set and photograph the set, I get to, you know, measure color charts, measure lighting, do lighting diagrams. I mean, all the cool stuff. It was like a dream job.
Yeah.
I did that for 4 movies with him. You know, like you said, Warhorse, Lincoln, Bridge of Spies, and I did the judge with him also, which, you know,
Right.
and and then, you know, and that evolved into one day of Janusz offering me to do second unit for him on the post, and that was then my sole role, is to come in and do the whole second unit, and you know, it's another crazy story.
Well, we have plenty of time if you want to talk.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like all this life, I was, you know, Warhorse was the first movie, but then we became really close, and the whole workflow that we made was kind of very efficient and working, and then when Janusz found out that I'm a U.S. citizen, you know, he could bring me for the next movie that was shot in Virginia, which was Lincoln, and that was the second movie, and you know, and that just progressed throughout the years, and you know, eventually, you know, there was a time where I'm like, okay, I moved to Los Angeles, and I was now thinking uh, how to pursue my own way, you know, how to. It was a very hard thing because you're like, okay, I've done this, I've done this a lot, and now you have to kind of stand up for yourself a little bit, and how am I going to do that, and that made me follow a little bit my own way here, and try to get more independent projects. But then, yeah, but then I was offered to do the second unit work, which was insane because then I was working directly with Spielberg on that, and it was tricky because I was like, what am I like? How, you know? There's this Polish boy that's flying to shoot this huge. You know, it was like a big responsibility there. You
Right,
know,
right.
first it was just doing some shots that that they had to move on, and they were dropping some little details that I had to pick up, but I had to recreate the lighting, but still. But that moved into like, oh, I'm like, suddenly there's this whole sequence that you have to shoot. I'm like, when is Spielberg going to shoot it? I'm like, you're shooting it. I'm like, who's directing it? I'm like, like, it's simple stuff, it's all you. And I'm like, how,
Wow.
what, and it's all like, it's all really chilling, like, to the bone,
Right.
because again, the responsibility, and again, you're working directly with Spielberg, and you have to deliver a Spielberg quality material, Spielberg quality dailies. And first I'm like, oh my God, what am I, like, how, like, what, how am I going to do this? And at the same time I'm thinking like, yeah, but like, who else than me has been around and understands and saw the
Right.
daily and saw how these guys work, how they think, and and I'm like, I know this stuff. This is why I'm here. And and then and that's how I first had this whole sequence of doing. There's a whole little sequence of typewriting in the post, where they're, with they're in the printing facility where the guy is typing, and that's there's he's producing these LED little pieces that you have to put the whole page
Right.
together.
Yeah. Hmm.
And that was that. And then they called me back to do some Washington reshoots, which was another huge unit. It was like a night exterior of a house, and I had an actor come in, which was also terrifying. And we had like crazy weather situation. It was, it was a massive unit. I had like, it was so difficult that one night, because we were trying to do basically 3 days in one day. I had like 24 grip and electric crew, just come in just to be able to do the turnaround and to set all the condors. And I'm looking at my set, and I'm like, my set is bigger than main unit for a second, there was a reason for that, but I'm just like, this is crazy. And and one thing was the scale, but then the other thing is, again, the direct responsibility of sending the shot, and literally sending with an iPhone, sending the shot to Spielberg to approve, so we can move on. And it was really stressful. And I thought, just like, you have to be crazy to cope with this scale of a production. And I think, like, I guess I am a little bit crazy, because I'm actually giving me the thrill. It's
Yeah.
actually just I actually love it. And
Mm.
I love the challenge of working, on that scale, on that kind of scale projects. Um, yeah, and then from that, I the Spielberg really loved everything what I've done for them. And then the next collaboration with Janusz was Call of the Wild, when he again brought me in to do second unit, which grew into like over 30 days of shooting, which is half of the production. I was on set and picking up shots or doing stunt sequences, doing, learning like a lot of blue screen, special effects, again, stunts, all this stuff, really working on the Technicrane every day. And it was just this massive filmmaking experience. And it was really amazing. It's like one of the best projects I had. But then you drop from that into the indie world, and you think like, how to merge these two things,
Mm.
and still the thing that is the same, no matter what kind of scale of a project you make, is the mindset is still the same. It's either you're making a big movie or a small movie, you're still thinking how to make it unique, how to make it special, how to make it, maybe personal is too big of a word, because it's, you're just a little, it's a little screw in a big machine. But how to really deliver 110% of what's really in you, like, is actually the, you know what I mean, like, to reach and and deliver stuff that is even, it's not going to meet only meet the expectations. It's going to be better than that, you know. And that's what I ask myself every day, like, how am I going to beat not only their expectations but also my own expectations of myself? You know, what am I going to do? And sometimes I'm like, oh, this is boring. I mean, like I gotta do something, because I'm, you know, you have to like also know how to balance that stuff.
Sure, yeah.
And that's you know, that's, it doesn't matter with the tools. I had situations on the Call of the Wild where I had to do like crazy indie solutions, you know, because I don't know, I had the Condor that broke down and we couldn't have this, you know, what was it, like 10 by 10 soft box like far away, and you know, and like, how am I going to create the same effect, you know? And there was like a river, it was, the Condor was behind a river, and how are we going to do the same thing, you know? And it was against blue screen, so I basically brought an 8x8 way closer. I rose it on stands, literally really close. I put like just like blue screen against the stands so it blew out the thing. So kind of just, so the size of the source was the same,
Right.
but it was way closer, you know. It was like
Sure.
the fall off was different, but something. But I had to, you know, I had to figure out a crazy solution how to just, you know, get the shots, and you know, yeah.
Well, as long as they were happy, that means you made it, right? So
Yeah.
that's what counts. Well,
Nobody dumped me in the river.
yeah. Well, you answer all my questions. I'm looking at it like I don't know what to ask anymore. No, I have few more, of course.
Tricky
Oh,
one.
did Spielberg ever said no, I don't like it when you were shooting the post?
No, it was more like, you know, I was, you know, there wasn't really like a shot list that was coming from him, or like shots that were particularly designed. You know, I had to figure out by myself, and especially when I heard I'm doing like a whole sequence, I'm like, okay, so it's not just a detail shot that he's going to put into something bigger. It's actually, I have to, you know, make a wide shot, make, you know, build a certain coverage of all these elements that he can put together. And you know, and I just had situation where I'm like, okay, the wide shot, you know, maybe, you know, like I thought about this dolly from left to right, you know, and we sending it for approval, and he's like, well, that's great, but like, how about you try it the other way around, you know? So we're like, the other way around. Okay, so instead of going from him to reveal the corridor, we're like, from the corridor we're going into him. And I'm like, wow, that's really cool, you know? Like, I'm like, wow, you know. So it was more something like that, you know. And
I
but,
see.
you know, like there was just a moment where, which is, you know, as I look back, it's just an incredible moment when he was, you know, I was invited to his little camp, and he was looking through the dailies that I shot from the last 3 days, and he said, like, you're doing an amazing work for my movie, and you know, and I really love what you're doing, you know. And I'm like, oh my god, like Steven Spielberg is just gave me, you know, a compliment like that. I'm like pinching
Yeah.
myself. I wasn't, but you know, I'm like
Sure. You
trying to be really appreciative
yeah.
and
Couldn't
not
believe it. Yeah.
go, you know, just not shoot up to the clouds and go all crazy, because it's, you know, that wasn't the end of it wasn't like a medal, you know, there was more work to do. And I knew, like, still, like, it can be good now, but like the next day you know, you get too excited and you fuck up, and it's you
Well,
know,
that's the ups and downs in this profession, right?
yeah, you try to keep the downs,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
minimal, you know, try to stay away from
So, how much of an input did Janusz have in those shots that you did by yourself?
them. No, you know, that you know, since I was working for him, I was really saying like, yeah, no, this is what I'm thinking. This is what I want to do. Do you think I should use smoke or not? You know, in this particular, because it's fluorescent tubes, and you know, like, you know, this is what I wanted. This is what I'm thinking. What do you think about that? You know, and he's like, yeah, fine, just do it. You know, so that's how it usually is. You know, it's really, Janusz gives a lot of freedom in that matter, and I really have to push him to, like, really like, I'm like, when we're watching days, I'm like, do you think that little bottom light is too much? And he's like, nah, it's fine. I'm like, yeah, come on.
Give me something. Give me something.
Like, it's like, I think it's maybe I could have made it a little cooler. It's like, yeah, maybe, but I know it's fine.
That's
So
easy.
he's like, he's he sees like the bigger picture of it and how much it's, so, but it was from one side you would want to be more like, but then he's leaving you in this space where you really have to fill in a lot with yourself. That's what makes I think the difference in the work. When there's this space that you just have to use your own intuition and your feeling and bring it to the next level for that.
Right.
Which it's exactly the same thing. It's like, is it a 2K or a 5K, Janusz? Should I use a 2K or a 5K? And it's like, and you're getting the answer, like you just feel it, and then you go and you just have to just feel it.
Yeah, experience it. Yeah, definitely. So
Shitty answer, for all the people that think there's a particular secret and technique to it, but in the end, it's very much so. Even if you watch, if you watch how Spielberg works, it's he watches the monitor and in the end, he's like looking, is this shot powerful enough? Is it working for the movie? It's like, if this little bit of a shot, if these 10 seconds of a shot is not having an impact on me right now on this little monitor, it's a big chance that it's not going to work for the big screen. So you have to make it work, right here and right now. And I sometimes I think there's people like, they think, oh, it's gonna, once I do it this way, and often it works that way. But I'm very into believing that you have to, on the day, on the set, you have to really focus and push to get the maximum out of that, out of the moment, out of the setup, out of the actors.
I see. So yeah, all that you said is kind of, I want to go back a little bit about that luck and connections. All that one phone call, right, led to all this. Yeah, that's an incredible story. The right place and the right person, right? The connection you had, sort of.
Yeah, but that's what, that's what it's what life is. It's all these little moments, and some of them are big and some of them are small, and some are very apparent that this is the opportunity, but sometimes there's little things that are happening, and the most important thing is just to be able to recognize them and kind of just let them grow. Like for me, it was a phone call that led to the first movie, but then what led to the next movie and the next movie and the collaboration and doing the whole thing, is then that's a little bit less luck. That's
right. Yeah.
more the hard work, and that's more being trying to stay on top of your game and not allowing any excuses that are going to stop you from being the best of who you can, and that's as important. And even if and even sometimes you think, what would I do if I didn't have that? Yes, I would be in a completely different place, but at the same time, it's fun to think about that. But that would be, but I would still use all the little opportunities that I'm getting to just move forward, to progress, and to me, that's the most important thing, is progress,
Right.
is using every day to be one step ahead. And sometimes you have days where you feel it's 50 steps back and you're going down, and especially this pandemic time is especially very saturated with ups and downs, and that are sometimes you understand them, and sometimes you don't understand where they're coming from, and but it's the most natural thing. It's the curve that is going up and down, and you're always going to have these moments in your life, but but if you're persistent and you're always focused on just going step by step towards your goals, I truly believe you're eventually going to get there.
Of course. So yeah, you use that luck, and then you have to just show your best. Basically, work very very hard to maintain and grow. Right.
Luck,
Basically.
yeah,
Yeah.
or I would call it opportunity too.
Yeah. Yeah. Opportunity.
Again,
Yeah. Yeah. Of
or you
course.
can, the same thing is you can get the opportunity to shoot your first feature, but I think everybody gets an opportunity,
Hmm.
then are you able to, are you able, or will you get the second movie, you can make the first movie, are you going to get the second movie, are you going to get the third movie? And every movie that you finish, it's a matter, have you done a good enough job to get the next one?
Right. Right.
And it's becoming a chain, and then you can link it, go back, and like, oh, if I didn't do that first movie, I wouldn't be here. But again, I like, again, you have DPs that have amazing debut breakthroughs, like their first movie is amazing, and everybody falls in love with them, and you have that, and you have people like that, and is that luck, or is that, what, that's just a different way.
Right.
you know
Hmm.
you have other people that, that make their first great movie when they're way later in their career, or you have people that are just doing another job, and suddenly there's no really recipe for it. you know I think the recipe should consist of how you approach a very difficult profession that is a freelance job, that is that you're basically on your own. There's no, like, you're building the ladder as along while you're climbing it, in a way, or like you make it out of elements that you get while you're hired. I don't know, maybe that's not the most fortunate metaphor, but it's there's really no, there's certain rules, but then again, in film school, you're like, oh, like you have this mindset: how do I become as great as Roger Dickens? How do I become as great as Bob Richardson? How do I become as great as Janusz Kaminski? And it's like, and you think like, oh, I'm gonna do like how they're doing it. But I think that the secret is you just have to be excellent in how you are about your work and your approach in your life, and that's what leads to excellence. Uh, when you're really following your gut and what you believe in. And this is very obviously vague and idealistic, but I truly believe in that. And there's a certain time where you're like, okay, Roger did it this way, but my name is Bartosz Nalazek, and I have no idea how I'm going to what's going to become of me in that way. Everybody has their own little path, and why I'm saying this is only because there's all realizing that brought a certain relief too, a certain relief that you only have to match up to your own expectations of what you want to do, which can be also very brutal and hard. But that's the way I think. That's just the way I think you should look. It's like you're your own special person that you just have to embrace what is important to you, and embrace the methods that are important to you, and then you're going to be an example of a person that follows his core, and that's an example for all the other people, no matter how far you get with it. That's what I think.
No, this is amazing. Very inspiring, definitely. So, next question. So, when did you shoot your first feature?
uh it's interesting. I mean, I shot two tiny features that were like below $1 million, and I guess those count, but in a way, I count as my debut, this Polish TV series that I did in Poland, um, which was like a bigger production. It was like a 48-day shoot for the national Polish television, and also that's the place where I could really kind of explore and be creative and convey uh, much more of myself than the first small 2 movies that I just was still figuring out how you really make a movie, and I was really still figuring out what it is to shoot consecutively for 20 days, you know, or 25 days. And you know, and yeah, so I think that's what I would say. I would say that the Polish TV series is kind of like the first big thing I've done, and that was recognized. Yeah. And then the first movie that I did in the States was this movie that I did with Paul Lieberstein. Was a little comedy that was a little over $1 million. And yeah, and then it's really those little movies are really really hard to make.
Because of budget limitation?
Because you know, because you're just, you know, you're really overwhelmed with the difference of applying certain expectations to how you think this movie should be made, to the reality of how it should be made.
Mm-hmm.
And just working on that is just a very difficult thing, because again, if you have 20 days to shoot a movie, that's you know, and you know, like you need to have a script that is designed to be able to shoot in 20 days.
Right.
Otherwise you're just like trying to do the impossible, you know, when you're trying to do, you know, like when you're trying to make a period movie in less than 25 days, you know, where you need the time for costuming, everything, you know, everything that falls into you being just really ambitious, and the energy of like, oh, we're going to make it. It's way more about like some kind of a sport aspect to the process of filmmaking than actually, you know, figuring out the way how you want to make a movie that is cohesive with the artistic approach that you want to convey is another thing, you know. The sport is because you're it's literally like figuring out how are you going to shoot this in this period of time. Now shooting a feature in 20 days is the new normal, or 25 days is the new normal. That's what the young DPs are facing, you know. That's how you just have to adapt to it, you know, and finding the way how you can still, you know, be creative and make it a creative process is dependent on how you figure it out, how to still do that way, you know, or how you design the production. But if you know, you can only do that if you're smart and you line up all the elements so you can actually achieve that. But if you're just approaching it like the conventional way, or like you know, just doing regular coverage and not, you know, like finding solutions that can make it possible, you're just doing this. It becomes just you know, a crazy factory with a tough deadline, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, and just the more you do it, you know, like you just merge from that aspect into like, okay, so in this is how I can use this still within those days. I can still, this is how I can be creative and be smart about this, you know, and still find something that's close to myself.
How much input do you have in camera placement when working on a project?
You know, it depends on the director, really. You know, you have directors that are that are more focused on the performance of the actors, and they kind of like, it's up to you, and like they're open and listening to you, how you want to do, how you where you feel the angle is. And you have also directors that have a very strong idea about it, and you have to respect that. It's every you know, every project is different. Every project you develop a different relationship, and you know, even during prep, you don't really know what's going to happen on set, and how is that, unless the director tells you, listen, this is your thing, like you can do it. But you know, normally still you're the expert in a way. You've been trained, and you've been doing this long enough for them to want to use that knowledge and use your opinion, how to lens a certain situation, where's the best angle to do it. But it's you know, it's not it's not a rule really, you know. You kind of, every director has a different approach on that.
Right, right. So tell me, at what point should
I
a
just want to
person?
add to that, you know, I just want to
Sure.
add to that which I find really interesting. I find directors that actually frame and sometimes even operate. I find that really fascinating, you know, because like, you know, like you have the, like what Soderbergh is doing, you know, like you know, the TV series The Nick,
Mm-hmm.
and so there's some other examples of that. But sometimes I feel like when, in terms of where you place the camera, you know, you have different motivation, you know, and one, the DP can have the motivation, I'm going to have this beautiful composition here and frame this, and really it's going to be a cinematic, beautiful image. But my motivation always, and you know, of course there's situations where I go around that rule, but like to me the most inspiring thing is when you put the camera where the real like action is, where the you know, where the emotions are, where you're close to the actor, where, and it doesn't have, to me, like it doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be, you know, whenever you feel the camera is telling a story, or like it's delivering a certain presence, I find that way more inspiring or interesting to me personally. And that's always what I'm leaning towards, you know. And sometimes the director that's just kind of like just holding the camera, like, oh, it's maybe this, or, you know, like sometimes Soderbergh is like shooting from his knee, you know, like he's just sitting on a doorway dolly and holding the camera on the knee, and the camera is like weird and awkward and doing stuff. I mean, sometimes I feel like, oh, this is fascinating, you know,
Right.
because I would never do, like, the way that the academia works in my head, I'm like, I would never do that, you know, because it's just, it's not the right, you know, it's not the right proportion, it's not the right thing. But then you're like, yeah, but just the energy of the shot and how it's working for the scene, it's just really, really interesting, you know. And just the feeling that I'm getting out of it is really interesting. And it's a feeling that it doesn't feel right. But I've learned this also from theater, that sometimes the feelings that are weird or awkward, or like you feel misplaced with what you're watching, you know, that those are as valid and could be thoughtful results of good filmmaking as if the ones that make you cry or make you, you know, I don't know, wish, upset, or really fall for other characters, you know.
Right. Well, you have to have a courage to take chance, like to place the camera when, like you said, on a knee and just start shooting. Right.
Yeah, well,
Sometimes it's like,
you need, you know, like you also need, you know, that I think that comes from also having the right perspective of what your role is on set, in a way, you know. And of course
sure.
you're there to photograph and lens, but at the same time, the most important aspect, you are a filmmaker, you're a storyteller, you're
Mhm.
there to collaborate with the director on how you're telling the story and the effect of it on the audience. And you know, and that's I think the, you know, the most important part of it, you know. And I'm willing to sacrifice to a certain degree uh, my the precision of my craft in order to achieve certain effects that are going to um, deliver a better performance or a better feeling of a scene, you know.
Right, right. There's a question I need to go back a little bit, sort of. So do you, because you come from theater, or you work in theater too, do you use theater lighting techniques on a movie set and vice versa?
Totally, which is, to me, it's really interesting, because in theater you still, you know, you there are different schools of approach, and some people say like, I light the space, and some people, I light the actor, you know. Theater, obviously, it's really funny because I kind of like, I in my case, I reversed those two approaches, you know. In theater, I'm a little bit more interested in lighting the space and making the actors a little bit more fit into that world, as if
Hmm.
lighting is just its own little, has its own theme, and it's not focused on the narrative aspect of having the important face brighter than the rest, you know. uh, which is a fashion in film a little bit right now. But in film, I'm really interested in in lighting faces and the performance and focusing on that, uh, and seeing how that can affect and what are the implications and results of that kind of approach. And what's really interesting about working with Janusz for so long is that I realized that Janusz has a very theatrical approach to lighting as well, in a way, and very often he uses the same lights. He uses park hands, or he uses source fours, or and just the same light sources. Just
Right.
you know, you also have all the other equipment that you can treat the quality of the light in a different way. But again, it's mostly focused on lighting the face and the performance. And to me, it was a very interesting marriage between like me coming from theater and using the theater techniques of lighting, and then going on the big movies and seeing that there's a lot of similarities between the two of them. And that's the world where I come from in that way. And but I'm always really fascinated by the princes of darkness, of like the DPs that really know how to ride the knee of the curve, and like starting from Harris Savides, and then going to Bradford Young, and all this what's really trendy right now, which is underexposing. I more come from the world of overexposing, but I always, because that's the natural thing for me to work with. I just always find it very inspiring and fascinating of underexposing. And it's funny because that's kind of what I do in theater. It's a really funny mix in that way, because
Do you think Lincoln was very theatrical? There was a very theatrical approach in Lincoln.
yes, totally.
I think so, yeah.
It's totally. And one of the main light sources were Parkins and source
Right.
fours, and there were a lot of, very often he was using source fours that were bounced off a little silver board or something, and that was the main that was the key light. And a lot of these, a lot of tungsten lighting was done in that movie. Yeah. And it's really interesting, because I feel like it was really fit, like just the production value of that movie is incredible. Just the walls, and like just the costumes and the
Right.
set design, and how the lighting was also you know really precise and very, very beautiful. I thought that movie deserved the Oscar of that year, because what it's just a different thing, where you have the craft of lighting and high profile cinematography. That is an enormous skill. And then you have the world of um, exterior photography, where it's just a different thing.
Yeah, when I saw it first time, I was like, well, it was a little bit shocking. Especially those scenes in the office, uh, all those politicians were sitting and talking, and it
Yeah,
was just so the blacks and the whole country was amazing. It was like my thought was right away it was a theater. That's what I thought.
yeah.
Really, I mean, it was
It's
amazing.
really, when you're so precise about lighting, it's really, and you have a room full of guys, it really is very hard to control.
Mm,
Be smart about it, because like the first thing, you're like, oh, I have 10 people around the table, I'm just going to hang a soft source above
right.
them, boom, you're done.
Hmm.
But when you're a little bit more direct about it, and you want a little bit more contrast in the lighting on everyone, and how you do that, it's really interesting, like
Yeah.
how the setups were, how Janusz was achieving that with his gaffer David Devlin. It was really really interesting.
Hmm. Hmm.
Very theatrical in a way, where you're like, okay, it's like, you have a face, you have a light, you have a face, you
Right.
have a light. It's not like, there's no like simple, like, oh, I'm just gonna make it all like blend into one.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that's what I noticed too. Sometimes, I looked at the scene, I was like, "Where's this light coming from?" And they just boom. so nice and
I have a
hard.
really good story about that too, because Janusz was like really creative about it. And there's one scene where Lincoln is sitting by his desk, and his desk is in between two windows, and then Janusz hang like a parkan above it, and he just blasted this top light onto the desk.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was just a witness of this conversation where Spielberg was, he was like, Janusz, okay, but like, I just don't understand this light. What is the motivation of that light? And Janusz was like, oh, like, what's the motivation? What's the motivation? It looks great. It's like, it's really cool, and then and he's like, yeah, but like, where's it coming from? What's the thing? And he's like, don't worry, it's gonna, it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be good.
Yeah.
And then I'm projecting the dailies from that, and I'm just like, that's the that's the that's the consciousness of how you want to be able to operate with lighting, where you have a desk, which in normal life it should be, it's against two windows, so you can be like, oh, maybe I'm going to sneak the light from, like, somehow rapid, so like just this top light. Something is the most, it's like, it's the you feel is the most reasonable thing to do in a situation like that, and it's really interesting because I was studying this for so long, and then in Call of the Wild, I had the opportunity. I had to like relight scenes after Janusz, and to do continuity with like half of the resources that he had. But I was like really becoming like this Caravaggianist, where I was just really, like, I had to. One thing is the matching, but like with working for him, it's not the matching aspect of it. Everything what's really resembling this unique style is that every shot has something extra, something that's really, that little thing, that's making it better than, you would think it's
Right.
it was, every setup was finding that on my own, and understanding that that's what I have to add,
Mm-hmm.
Like after, like, we're setting this up and like, this is what they did. I'm like, there's still something missing, and sometimes it was just that little light that you put on the floor, that added that little sheen in the wood or something, and that was it. And to jump later, because Ferron Papamichael was doing the reshoot, the additional cinematography for Call of the Wild, and when Ferron once came to a set that I was lighting for him too, because I also was doing a little bit of second unit for him as well. And he's like, what is this Polish thing that you guys have? Like, do you all put lights on the floor? Like, Bartosz Wolski puts lights on the floor, Janusz puts lights on the floor. What is this light on the floor? And I'm, and that's why I'm just like, somebody, like, first time, like, someone called it out in a way.
I see. Okay. Yeah.
Is that a Polish? I don't know, but it's this thing that you're like, you're just hungry for something. You're just hungry, like hungry for something extra, I don't know if that's the recipe for the,
like you said, there's no recipe, right?
European style or something, but
I see, yeah.
it's just funny that very often it's just being creative with the lights, and some very often the light coming from the ground that has no reason for being there, because people don't put lights on the ground. That's not a human thing to do.
Yeah. Unless you're drunk and next day you wake up and then there's a light on the floor,
Yeah.
It falls accidentally.
And then you think, was there a Polish DP that came over? And
too much vodka, right? Polish vodka, right?
But but that's how, like, what's the motivation of that light?
Right.
Motivation is because just the image is a little bit more striking and vibrant and has better energy. Like, look at it. Which of course works for certain types of movies, and for certain types of movies it's too much, and that's the thing. If you're making a $1 million movie, it's and if you fall into the thinking that that's the kind of lighting and that's the kind of precision lighting you want to do, then you're going to fall into serious scheduling, like time issues, because like that kind of lighting also takes time.
So tell me, at what point should a person call himself, herself, a cinematographer? To have that title, to say, I'm a cinematographer, that's my job, in your opinion?
yeah, and you know, because the word can mean many things to different people, everybody has the right to call themselves a cinematographer once they pick a camera, you know, and they and they're responsible for registering a moving image, you know. That's what the cinematographer is that's what what's the word implies. It's the person that is responsible for, you know, for the moving image, you know.
Mhm.
But I think because it means, you know, different things to everyone, it's I think it's just a personal thing, you know. I make money out of it. I have no other income. I make money off of being a cinematographer. I'm a cinematographer. Actually, I'm a director of photography in that capacity. You know, that's my profession. Uh, you know, if I'm somebody that is passionate about it and is not making money, but it's my passion thing, and you call yourself a cinematographer, you also have the right to do that. And I have, you know, you whatever it means to you, you can call that yourself, you know. And but in the long run, it's up to, you know, if you're a bad cinematographer, does that mean you can't call yourself a cinematographer?
I see. Right.
Or if you buy a DSLR, you know, a Canon 5D or a Sony, you know, A7S or something, you know, and you shoot music videos in the desert, you know, with your friends, does that mean you're a cinematographer, or it means you're not a cinematographer because it's not, because it's, you know, because it's not big scale or something, you know.
Mhm.
Or also, if you call yourself a director, editor, producer, cinematographer, you know, makeup artist, you know, on your on the same in the same business card, I mean, does that lessen you as a cinematographer? I really don't know, you know. I think um, but whatever you do, I think you should just stand up to your own expectations of what that word means, uh, you know, to you. And yeah, does do you have to become a member of the American Society of Cinematographers to be a cinematographer? Thanks God that's not the case. You know,
Yeah.
this job in its full beauty, and it's also trickery. Everybody that reaches for a camera can call himself that way, but you know, but the easiness of that is also can also be very treacherous in a way, because
Mhm.
it's a profession that is one of those dream jobs, you know, that a lot of people reach out to reach out for as a dream job, you know. And but it's but it's also a really hard job to pay for the bills in that way, you
Right.
know.
Right.
Same thing with actor, right? You know, like you know, let's say I went to like a acting course, and you know, am I an actor? You know, I call myself an actor, but I'm actually, you know, I pay for the bills as a waitress, you know. So who are you, an actor, or you're a waitress, you know, or you're something else? I don't really know. I
Right.
think I think what's important is again is to, while you're calling yourself a cinematographer, is again is to stand up to whatever being a cinematographer means to you, you know. And if it's being a filmmaker, being a collaborator, being, you know, a person that helps tell the story visually in any capacity, then you know, and if you're doing that, then you're a cinematographer.
I love the answer. The best ones so far I've heard, I think, when I ask this question. um, you shot Making a Scene for New York Times with Oprah Winfrey, Kate Blanchett, Forrest Whitaker. There were 11 short scenes. How long did it take you to shoot all of them?
That was spread over a period of a month.
Hmm.
And sound,
Sound. It's always the sound guy.
yeah. Okay, ready, roll.
Wow.
Yeah, I missed that.
I know.
Been too long since I heard that. Those.
Yeah.
That was over a period of a month because part of we were shooting like I think 11 scenes. We were shooting 5 scenes in New York, 5 scenes in Los Angeles, and one
Mm.
scene in London with Kate Blanchett. It was and it was a really interesting project because on one side there was like a whole month, but all of these performers gave us from 30 minutes to an hour of shooting time.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, so there's and again the project was where Janos was meant to direct it, and I'm like, when Janos was like, hey, would you shoot this for me? I'm like, yeah, Janos, right, sure, I'm gonna shoot for you. Like, what are you, crazy? And I'm like, no, like, I want you to shoot this stuff. I'm, okay, yeah, I guess what it means to shoot for Janos, which is I'm gonna just
Just put the light on the floor. That's fine,
yeah,
right?
yeah, like I'm gonna be like, I don't know, be just a figure. I don't know. I didn't
Right.
really know. I was really like,
Uh,
yeah, right. But then it turned out that he totally gave me the freedom, and he also tricked me a few times in that way. Because he totally gave me the freedom of like doing the lighting and setting it up, and often we were going on location. I had like 3 hours to set up the scene, and then the actors came for 32 an hour minutes, and we were just like crazy shooting, and it was really way closer to this kind of two students of cinematography
mm.
trying to make something, make more than just one shot, and like just be a little creative and a little crazy. And it was really fun to partner with him in this, improvising and also and also like being part of being part of the presence of these amazing actors. But the tricky part is because there's one scene where I'm like, I wanted to put this green gel on the whole scene and make it more like blue and green, and I was a little, I thought that's a lot, and I'm like, Janos, I went to like, Janos, what do you think, should I do it this way? And Janos was like a little bit like, well, maybe it's a little, too much or something. I'm like, yeah, you're right, And then I was just like, okay, so take off and we shot the scene and we did everything like that. And then Janusz at the end of the thing, he told me like, you should have kept the green.
I see.
Ah,
Could
you
have
know,
stepped your foot down, and say like, Janusz, that's
yeah,
not.
but this is the tricky part, it's you're like, this is when this is when one of the tricks when mentor protege, like that, this is was the moment where you should stand for what you felt and what was your
Right.
inspiration. And again, this is what you should do in many cases, to
Mm-hmm.
listen to that voice and do it, no matter if
Right.
you're in the position to if even if you feel insecure or something. But this is the process. This is the process. This is the process of what it means to be a cinematographer. Is
Mm.
to is
There you
to
go. Yeah.
making those decisions that you feel are right and true to what you also want to what you want it to be.
Right. So let's talk about one of the scenes with Forrest Whitaker. That scene was selected for Emerging Cinematographer Awards in 2014 by ICG. And why do you think that scene? There were so many other one are great. I'm not saying this is a better one. I'm just saying all of them are so great. Why do you think, in your opinion, what do you think
It
what
was
that
really
was?
hard for me because I really wanted to apply my work to that, to this initiative that was organized by Local 600 and International Cinematographers Guild. And but that was, from all of those, that was the one that was a bit more the most cinematic,
I
most
see.
the most covered in a way. There was the
Mm-hmm.
most amount of shots that and the rhythm, and it was a little bit, every of the scenes was a minute long, but then some of them had like 3 shots, some of them had 5. This one was a little bit more of a had more montage in it, and I thought it's a little bit more complete. However, I still was feeling very insecure that it's only a minute, you know uh, yeah. But that was my that was my thinking. I still wanted to give it a shot, and I'm very grateful that they recognize that despite of the length of that clip. And yeah, but that was most Forrest Whitaker gave us the most time also. Like he gave us like an hour, shoot it, so we could do a dolly here, we could do a little that, we could go back, make a wider shot, and I still stayed and did like some details. So it was the most saturated with various shots, and I thought it's might be the most worthy of the initiative.
I see. Yeah, very, very nice of Forrest that he gave you an hour. That's very generous. Yeah, that's good.
Just because he's like, oh yeah, I know Warsaw, I know Poland. Yeah.
Oh yeah, nice.
But at the same time, what was amazing with that thing, that moment, is that he, there's this moment where he's writing and he gave this very moving, like he broke up and he gave a tear and
Mm-hmm.
he delivered these emotions, and I was there operating right in front of him basically while we were doing like a close-up, and I felt the power of this actor that was gave this energy, and his emotions were just so electrifying that every time like they were saying cut, I was just like, he was like releasing, I was releasing too, I was like,
yeah,
I was exhausted with the weight that like I was just gathering through the lens,
mm-hmm.
And that was like a moment where I was like, this is why I'm making movies, for moments like this. This is why, this is why I'm doing this.
And when you feel that, when you observe that emotion, it's also so much better for you to be connected, right? And it just like you feel like everything just works together so much better.
Yeah. I mean, but then you get hungry of it. Then when you don't get it, you're like,
like, when is the next movie with Forrest Whitaker? You're thinking of it.
but then you're like, like then you sometimes, if it's the right moment and the right director and the and the right topic, and then you walk to the director and you're like, I just feel like we can get more out of it, and sometimes, when people don't have that experience of working with great actors and how powerful the performance can be, sometimes, younger filmmakers don't even know that they can go there, or they feel intimidated that they're even trying to push somebody's, boundaries as an actor. They're like, is this okay with you? This, and this is the trick, when you have tasted this, then you're constantly hungry for it too.
Right.
Yeah. Not every project requires that, and it's the right moment for the right intensity. But yeah, I'm so lucky to have worked around these amazing actors. Was it either Daniel Day-Lewis or Tom Hanks, Meryl Streep, all those incredible actors, and just observing them how they're in their element, and how much they're giving. It's just created for me this extreme hunger for, like, that's the kind of stuff that I want to be part of. That's the kind of actors that I want to photograph. And again, it's I want, that's what I that's why I go to cinema. I go for the emotions, for the performances, and just it happens to be that I have a great role in the movie making process, that I can portray and picture them and even enhance their performance with the right angle, with the right lens, with the right lighting. So it's an incredible profession in that matter.
Right. So, what is your style, and how do you create style?
Interesting. From early on, I was like, I don't want to be a DP with a style, but then the style catches up with you, because if you consider style as a certain aspect of imaging that makes the style, which is, you know, certain lenses or certain lighting or certain way of using the camera, and that's my style. I think just going for this is my style is just too easy for me. Maybe this is just me, you know, throwing logs in front of myself, but that's just too easy. I feel, you know, like, oh, I'm a DP that has this naturalistic style, handheld, this and this and that, and I'm like, but I was always afraid of like, okay, so they're only going to hire me for that, you know.
Mm.
And I wanted to be hired for the ability to really be a collaborator in the process of understanding the script and the story, and choosing the appropriate visual elements that will describe the world and be part of it, part of the storytelling. And, you know, and I always try to approach it, and that's at least what I say, and that's what I try to achieve, is to, the most important thing for me is to listen to the script, and to, you know, to try to listen to the script, and figure out what the script wants to be, and determine the style from that, you know. And where the style comes is the way you think, and when the way you approach the work. And I guess that's maybe becoming my style. I think it's too early. I'm in a too early stage of my career to really see if this is all making sense, and you can start connecting things and seeing this stuff. But like, I'm always interested in various things. I mean, I love this job also because of the variety of the work, you know, of the variety of the subjects. Every project is different, and every project you can also enter as an actor that has to transform into this, you know, we call it method cinematography. You know, you're just changing your mindset to fit into the genre. And sometimes it's really hard because you find yourself doing things that, you know, are not the closest to yourself, but you're still trying to empathize and work with them, and those ones are hard. But then that's at the same time, that's what I find really interesting, is the ability to do that. So that's what I would, you know, so that's what's my style, is just the I would want to define my style through the way how I approach the collaboration with the director and the script, versus any technical, you know, anything technical that could define that, you know. Because I think like the technical, like if you have a style, it's just like a trend, you know, it can burn out. What's Roger Dickens' style, you know? Like all his movies have the same sauce, but
Right.
all the movies are a little different, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Bob Wilson, same, you know, it's the style that's appropriate for the story, for the, you know, for the tone. Same thing with Janusz Kaminski. What's his style? You know, yeah, you can say the blown out windows, or you can find those few things that he's
Mm-hmm.
not afraid of doing, and that makes his style. But I think his style is the fact that he's bald, and he's, you know, and he uses the camera and the lighting to express himself, and to express the scene, and to find how to enhance it, and make and you know, and enhance the visual metaphors with it, you know. And that's what I would, you know, that's what's great style for me. It's like
Mm-hmm.
is still doing that. But if you have a DP that just makes everything dark and moody, you know, that's a great style, and I like it. But I like it today, but tomorrow I might find it, you know, my day might be, you know, I might have a sunny day, and I'm like, well, you know, this is not speaking to me this way any, you know, you know what I mean. It's tricky to say, but
Right.
yeah, I would prefer not to have a style,
I see.
um, of that would be like tagged,
Got
uh,
you.
in my work.
So, besides Janusz, uh, which directors and DPs would you like to work with?
Uh, yeah, I was afraid of that question.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Well,
well, I can say, the DPs that I would love to work with. Again, I had the amazing opportunity now to work with Fedon and James Mangold, and that was a really interesting. But again, that's the people. I think the directors that I would really want to work with, that I can realistically work with, are not on the radar yet.
Okay.
They're they're baking in the oven still, and they're just waiting for the opportunity to meet a collaborator and somebody who's going to make them make great things together. I like all the young directors like David Lowery, Ari Aster, right? I like Jordan Peele from the American ones, especially the ones that are exploring with the genre. Who else? Uh, Robert Eggers. I love all those guys' movies, and all the guys that are being bold and exploring within the medium. And yeah, I would love to work with them. From but at the same time, um, I would love to work on huge projects too. Well, you know what? Yeah, we'll see. This
Yeah.
always the question. Always the question about what's my favorite thing, or what. You never know how to answer. I don't know what my favorite color is. Because they're all interesting and they all have something. And I'm like, I don't have the need to identify with an answer like that. I think again, every opportunity is a different opportunity, and whenever it comes, it's a great thing. And the movies that inspire me is like the ones that I told you. There's also a lot of amazing cinema being made, uh, you know, outside of America, and I would be
Of course.
really open to do amazing, European cinema or Asian cinema too, stuff that are coming from Korea or from Vietnam. But then again, it's like how do you reach those people, and why would these amazing directors that already we know that have an interesting style of storytelling, why would they want to work with me? What is interesting about me that would be cool for them to collaborate with? It's like,
Hmm.
um,
There are a few well-known Polish cinematographers in Hollywood. Do you guys hang out? Do you guys like meet up and drink a beer,
break things
vodka, break things, put lights on the floor and stuff like that?
or gossip talk,
Gossip,
like
sure.
inside backstage,
Yeah.
Polish mafia style. Well, what happens in the Polish mafia, among the Polish mafia, stays among the Polish mafia.
There you go. Yes. Yeah.
No, I mean, from the people that are I'm close with here, it's Monika Lanczewska and Magda Górka, uh, that are, you know, that I am in contact with, and we're friends, and we're friends, and I also admire their work. Um, and yeah, who else is on the scene? You have the Polish cinematographers like Dariusz Wolski or Andrzej Bartkowiak, or the older generation, which I don't have any contact with, really, and it's not like they're hanging out. But then, yeah, like the younger generation is hanging out here. We all know each other, and but at the same time, I'm like, I recently am meeting new Polish people that I thought I kind of know, but Los Angeles is such an amazing place where just things happen out of, like, and
Right.
you think there's a Polish community, but there's no really Polish community here, and you in a sense of like Chicago,
Hmm.
Polish ghetto style. There's only Polish Gangnam style.
I see. I see.
Yeah.
Uh, I lied to you. I have one more question. So, which I missed. So, was there ever a time that you felt that Kaminsky and Spielberg were making a poor choice with a shot or scene, according to you, poor choice, right? And did you ever speak up and suggested another option?
I will never,
Maybe never.
never in that way.
Uh-huh.
Uh, you know, I was finding myself in situations where I was like, oh, this is, how is this gonna work? But in most of those situations, I was watching the dailies and then I watched the movie and I'm like, okay, that's how.
I see.
And that's what was really happening. I don't really recall a situation where I was just like, these guys, what are they? I was more, to as a general impression, I was more fascinated with how Spielberg was like on the go, inventing these shots that were telling the story in one move, and that's the thinking behind that, and also the complexity in achieving that technically,
Mm-hmm.
and Janusz, who is also, fast and flexible in order to match those ideas very often, like you have shots where the camera is doing this and that and that, and you would think I'm like, how is he gonna do this? Like how is he gonna light it? And very often it was just like, how, like this, and then you put a par can in the middle, and of course I'm joking, but it's like you just take it, step by step, and if you have a complex shot, you also light it step by step, and this is where it's interesting when you have a director that's thinking with the camera and with the image, and this is what it does, then and you lighting only for that, which is a little bit more theatrical approach, because if you would light a whole space, like, well, with this camera, like, you have to light it in a way that it works for everything, which is probably wouldn't be so expressive or strong. But then if you're like, okay, so you light the space first with the actors, but then you do the camera, okay, I see that light, I see that light, I see that light. But Janusz is super flexible and like, okay, lights, okay, this lights, this frame, that frame, and he combines it all, and he's flexible, and he ties it all together, and this is a very interesting dynamic between them, that works, and it has produced one of the most cinematic, remarkable movies out there,
Yeah.
that are like affected generations of filmmakers. Even if you think you don't have it in you, you have it in you. There's always a piece of AI, or Saving Private Ryan, or Munich, or what, or some, Minority Report in your head, or War of the Worlds. There's always,
Or ET. Oh, yeah.
yeah, or ET, or
Yeah.
there's always, or there's,
Sure.
they're in there. They're in there.
Yeah. Yeah. Movies that affected our childhood, memories, everything. Yeah, definitely. Big time.
But this is us. I'm really curious also if you think of like what's the next generation, like what are like what are the movies that are happening now that for us are like, oh, this is another interesting movie, but like a younger generation, like that's the movie, like, oh my god,
You know,
that's a trauma for me. A trauma is is Jurassic Park. I want to see it way too early in my life, way
yeah,
too early.
right.
And it's just, and there's certain images that I can't get out of my head. They're still there.
Bartosz, thank you so much for this. It's been a great pleasure talking to you, and for this amazing interview, and the information you gave us. Truly inspiring. Thank you, and wish you good luck with meeting your favorite directors, favorite DPs, and etc. And yeah, best of luck. Thanks so much.
Get back to work. Thank you for this. Thank you for this. This was awesome.
Thanks so much.